Hello, this is Lasse from Pihka Sound. Today I'm gonna be making a beat, probably a beat, with these lovely hardware devices that we have, synthesizers and the sampler, Octatrack, the analog rhythm, maybe a guitar. By the way,
do you want to close the window? Oh, it's already closed.
Yes, I did close the window. Yeah, there's a renovation.
It's a bit
next door,
noisy.
And yeah, it's really noisy. Actually, there's a renovation at my home at the moment as well, so I haven't really slept. But for some reason, I wanted to make a video anyway.
You're gonna be more creative today.
Yeah, and behind the camera, there is Joona from the band Enzyme. Check out his music. If you've seen our Monday jams, we use only hardware then. There's no DAW sync used in any way. The DAW is just used as a glorified recorder. But when I am producing for ourselves or other artists, I'm using Ableton as a hub for everything, so that when I press play on Ableton Live, all these sequencers start, and I have made a template so that whenever I want to use some device, it'll make sound immediately, provided that it's on. Joona is a very good cinematographer for this clip, because he's also using Ableton Live, and he's not using hardware synths at all. Hardware integration might be a little bit of a new thing for him.
It sure is. So how do you start?
How do you start? I have a template. I just made a new template this summer. In Live, you can't make templates as a default. You actually have to write this folder called templates inside of your user library. You open up user library like this, show in Explorer, and create these templates here if it's not in there. Then you can insert Ableton Live sessions in there, and they will appear in Live as templates like this. And from the template you can track anything you need. You don't need to use the full template. You can just use those tracks that you need. Like if you have started a track in the box, like you have programmed like drums or using some splice samples or something, and then want to use the mono station or something, then you can just take that from the template. You don't need to take the full template. But in this case, we're going to take the full template. Like this. We do not want to say that.
What do you need the template for?
For ease of use.
But what will you configure in the template?
I will show you in a minute.
Okay.
But first I can show you what needs to be done for every synth if I don't have the template. Like if I would want to use the mono station and play it via MIDI, sequence it from the Ableton project, I would have to make a MIDI track. Then I would have to take an external instrument, send MIDI to RAID MIDI port 1, which is the mono station. It listens to channel number 5, that much I remember, and it takes audio from mono station. Yeah, this is the beautiful thing about Live 10. You can name your channels.
Yeah.
That's something you definitely should do if you have a lot of inputs and outputs. You can name your channels by going into preferences, like this, and input config. There, you can name your inserts. And you probably will not have like 36 inserts like we do. Well, actually, we're using only 22 inserts, but that's already quite a lot.
Yeah, and how do you have so many inputs? I mean, what's the device you plug the devices in?
RME RAID. It's a really old PCI Express sound card, but it's still amazingly good. Like you can get much lower latencies than with USB, and pretty much the same as with Thunderbolt. You are going to need like separate analog inputs. These inputs listen to the synthesizers and the microphones, and they go to the RME via an ADAT cable.
Mm-hmm.
So one of these interfaces has 8 analog inputs, and those 8 analog inputs go into these first 8 inputs on the RME. And the second second preamp here also has 8 inputs, and they go into the next 8 channels on the RME.
But you still have 4 more.
Yeah, actually I have 6 more.
Right.
Because there are inputs on the Euro rack as well. There is one more sound card and audio interface here in Euro rack called Expert Sleepers ES6. There's an ADAT cable going from here to the RME behind the computer. It's actually in there. In there, if you want to see. Like, this is one of the worst things about using hardware synthesizers, is like this snake pit behind your computer and your rack. And you know, when like one small cable gets broken, then it's always a pain in the ass to
figure out which.
That's a topic for another video. And there have been a lot of good videos about these things already. Like Bo Beats makes really nice videos about synth hardware, and I actually learned to use the patch bay from a Bo Beats video. I had never used a patch bay before, so thank you, Bo. You are wonderful. So what was I doing? I was showing what steps need to be taken for every hardware synth if you don't have a template. But now we made those steps, and now we can hear audio from this device. And now I think it is actually synced. Yes, it is synced. When I press play here, this one starts as well. So yeah, it is synced now. But we want to sync everything, and we would have to, like, every time we want to use like the Minilog on the wall in there, I would have to create a separate track and create those MIDI outputs and create the audio input and everything. So why not just have a template and you know, have it all figured by default.
So you have all in the same channels at all times, so you have access.
Yes. Well, we have like a few more synths than we have channels, so sometimes we have to use the patch bay just because of that. Like for example, if we want to use the iPad, which is also synced to the Ableton Live session, we would have to use the patch bay to like steal channel from the Juno 106 for the iPad or something. Right,
so it's MIDI synced.
It is MIDI synced always, yeah. And how do you have so many MIDI channels? Well, we have a MIDI splitter for that. So we have MIDI coming out from Ableton.
How many channels do you need? Like, do all devices need MIDI sync?
Not all, but quite many.
Right.
Because I like to use hardware sequences. It makes me work in a different way than looking at a MIDI map on Ableton Live. So yeah, you need to send out MIDI from Ableton, and you go to Preferences, you go to Link MIDI, and you will have to check these output slots. And output RAID MIDI port 1 is like everything. The RAID MIDI port 1 goes into this device here. It listens to one MIDI channel from Ableton Live and splits it into different MIDI devices. And like you can see, we're not even using all. So there's plenty of room for gear acquisition syndrome. Sometimes you can use USB, like most modern devices. Listen to MIDI sync and even transmit audio via one single USB cable, which makes it a whole lot easier. Like you can see here that we're also sending MIDI to the Electron Analog Rhythm Mark II via USB, and it is synced. When I press play here, the analog rhythm also starts, and there's no MIDI cable going in there. It's just a USB cable. But I don't know, I just find old school MIDI more reliable than USB. Okay, let's open up the template, and I will go through the template now. I also have color coded everything. Like you can see, I'm using very specific color codes always for drums, bass, synthesizers, guitars. They're always the same color, so it's easy to see. And they also grouped like this. so that the session doesn't look like this when I open it up, like a whole lot of channels. I will close them now. And right now, if I want to send MIDI to analog rhythm, like this, it's gonna listen to the MIDI, like that. Pretty cool. It's also gonna listen to the Ableton tempo. If I change the tempo on Ableton, it's just gonna, and all of these devices sync immediately to Ableton's tempo. It's pretty nice. And I can hear this. And if I want to go play the Minilog, I can just go play it. And I can also sequence it from Ableton. And actually from the Minilog, MIDI out, going into Ableton Live. So I could record MIDI with this into Ableton.
And edit that later. And
edit that later and quantize
play it again on the Minilog.
Yeah. And that's really important as well. You don't always want to go to your master keyboard which doesn't work, by the way, no?
Right. Is it USB?
Yes, it's USB. But now, if I select my Minilog channel, I can... No, I don't have the record on, so...
Yeah. Okay.
Now I can play the Minilog from here, I can sequence it from here. And yeah, that's nice.
So that was like a false MIDI channel there, or what was wrong with it?
I didn't have the record enabled.
Right, so
in
it wasn't
Ableton.
armed.
Yeah, it wasn't armed.
Right.
Yeah.
You were playing the Arturia keyboard to play some sounds from the Minilog, right?
Yes.
All right.
It's going through Ableton, so I could use this to play any device that I have on this.
That's cool.
Yeah, that's cool. Like I can play the vocal keys. Do I have it on the patch bay now? Well, we can just listen to it on its own speaker because it has a speaker. Like I could play that synthesizer, like that. What is this called in English?
Like
type.
Keyboard MIDI.
You can activate this by pressing M. Is it on by default? If you press M.
No, it isn't.
Yeah, I think I've made like a keyboard mapping. By the way, if you want to keyboard map your live session, you do it by going Control K, Command K on a Mac.
Right.
You can map anything to any key. Like I have C always mapped to click, because by default Ableton Live doesn't have a hotkey for click on off, and it's really important to have a hotkey for that. And you can see the hotkeys up here. So key C is for metronome on off, that's the click. Then I have O for arrangement override. I also have one for tap tempo, and actually M is not in there, so it is on by on M. Hotkey is on by default in Live. The goal is to use hardware as if it were like in the box, like a plugin.
Right.
Yeah, like I want it to be as easy to use as a plugin.
Right.
That's when you're gonna use it, because it's like in any way more difficult to use than a plugin. Then you're just gonna use a plugin. This is just like using a plugin. It's like no way different to that.
Right.
If you take the time to make this kind of a template. Okay, so I also have a guitar track here on the template, because I like to use guitars a lot when I make beats, and I'm using a lot of like hardware pedals for the guitar, and I'm using a really nice preamp, but it would make no sense to have an amplifier in this studio, because you would have to have it on really loud, and it's not fun in a 19 square meter studio. So I am using a plugin for that, the Native Instruments guitar rig for that. This is a DIY guitar, by the way. Now I just have to change the input. Usually I use second input for guitar, but now I have it on the Eurorack sound interface, so it's Euro number 3. Probably you're gonna hear a lot of hiss now. Yeah, like this. So it's like this easy to pick up a guitar and make noise with it. This is my this has been my goal with it, to make it like super easy, so like nothing gets in the way of the workflow. So this is my pedal board. The guitar first goes into the tuner, so you can tune the guitar. Then it goes into the booster. The booster goes into the preamp, here, the Neve clone, and then it will go into all the other effects. And from there, from the Fuzz Factory, which is an insane pedal, it goes into the audio interface here. And this goes into the sound card. This is a fun pedal, by the way, the Carlin compressor. It's like an old Swedish design from the 70s, I think, like a fuzz pedal. So and this is made from a DIY kit because they don't make the original anymore. And I colored it in Swedish colors to honor the original. Let's do like a. I will try to do a kick and snare like that. Let's see what happens. Let's try that. Whoa, 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 whoa. Yeah, this could be our kick, we just need to like. There's like a really lo-fi beat. And let's give it some distortion maybe. Don't want to listen to the click anymore. So this is also like one of the good things about using a hybrid setup. Like you can use Ableton's effects all the time. It's a really stupid loop though. What if I wanted to supplement this lo-fi beat with the analog rhythm? Well, I can just go to the rhythm and do that. Nice! Now it's not quantized, I believe. Global quantized like that. Now it should be on time. Nice. Now I don't want to use that hi-hat. I would much rather just, like for this track, for example, I might want to use like a splice loop. I can just, because I have a hybrid setup, I can just use a splice loop or whatever from Ableton, or I could just use a live shaker for this. So let's apply. That sounds like fun. Nice. It actually works quite nicely. Yeah, this is not like the most interesting track ever, and I don't think I'm going to be making a beat out of this. But for the sake of this demonstration, it might be nice. Do you have any questions, Jonna?
So you're using Electron, and can you tell us a bit about your reasons for using Electron?
I was in the market for getting like analog drum sounds, and I was gonna get them to the Eurorack, like get like analog drum Eurorack modules, but the Electron device just seemed to have it all, and the rhythm is really easy to use. I find, like once you learn one Electron device, you can pretty much operate all of them except the octave track. that's a bit more difficult. The basics are the same, but this goes like way beyond basics.
Yeah.
But the rhythm is quite a basic device, and it's a really lovely sounding analog drum machine, and I fell in love with that. So that's because that's why I use Electron devices. Do you want to know something about the other equipment? I wasn't using everything now.
Yeah, well, maybe a quick run through the devices that you're usually using.
Well, there's the piano, which is microphoned at all times. So you can just open up a channel like this, color-coded, like a piano should be color-coded. And give it an input of, like it says piano here, piano left, right. And now I can record the piano through those two microphones. And that's really important, so that even the upright piano functions like a plug-in piano in this case. Well, obviously you would have to use headphones because you're going to get feedback from the microphones. Yeah.
So you often opt for using the actual piano instead of any plugins.
Yeah.
You can't use MIDI to control that, though.
You can't use MIDI to control that. That's unfortunate. Not yet.
I can see why it would be made, though. You would have the benefit of the perfect sound of the piano, and also the benefit of editing the MIDI.
Well, actually, perfect is like a not a very fit word for that, because you're looking for the imperfections actually when using live instruments instead of MIDI instruments, as they could be called. There's always going to be some discrepancies in tuning and in timing, and the piano chair is going to squeak a little bit, and those are the things that if you produce songs in the box, then a lot of people use like analog hiss emulating sounds, and they actually add those piano chair squeak sounds in there, or the pedal sounds. You can add, like in Native Instruments Giant, you can add those pedal sounds in there, and you can just get them live with that. And there has been a case when somebody wanted to like remove those, so I had to use the plugin called RX to remove those piano squeaks from there, which was kind of like weird. Why use a live piano if you're gonna like use it use a really clean MIDI piano then if you want to remove those squeaks? Like, I'm looking for a lively sound always. So then we have these are like the Juno 106 is like the only proper vintage synthesizer that we have. It's a really classic. Then we have the Minilog, and the Minilog, this is the original Minilog, so it doesn't have any effects, like I said, besides the delay. So we have some pedals. Nice, and we have these are both are like DIY pedals, so they sound a bit quirky. Noise.
Right. So, tell me a bit about your like workflow. How it compares to working like only on Ableton, and then if you compare that to working with the external synths and stuff, and why do you like that workflow?
I like the workflow because I'm not sitting all the time. Like I really like it that when I like want to make the kick drum sound a little bit like shorter or something, I will have to get up and like listen to the kick drum here and use my hands instead of the the screen. And I really like the tactile feel of it.
Okay, so it feels more like playing.
Playing is actually the proper word, because this is supposed to be playful. Like music is, for people to be happy. And I'm happy when I'm touching these knobs.
Okay, so it kind of transfers into the music when you're having fun with your fingers and. Even if it was all like digital gear, like most of this gear we have is analog, because I really love the discrepancies of the analog sound and the liveliness of it, and that it's not always like completely perfectly on time and everything. But even if it were digital synths, like the Digitone, like an FM synth, I still like it because you use it in such a different way than, say, opening up operator. Do you have any idea, any theory why it works that way? Is it like, do you have like more visual feedback or more buttons visible, or what? What's the reason? That
is a really interesting question. And if you have like some comments on it, then please.
Because you can do all that in operator.
You can do all that in operator, but you just don't do it.
So it's because of
in operator.
User interface is different, so it kind of
leans into a different workflow.
Yes, exactly. And sometimes you want to use the in-the-box workflow. Sometimes it is more suited to the song that you're working on. Actually, everything starts with the song.
Right.
Like, actually, I'm better at writing song. Even songwriting works better for me with these devices. But once I have the song, then it might be that it works better inside the box completely. It's very rare that it does, but sometimes you just want to be sitting in front of a computer and not get up and just work in there. Yeah. And then Serum is a perfect choice, or operator, or whatever.
Yeah, that's the thing. I really like that kind of workflow. But maybe it stems from my desire to just have some sounds that inspire a vocal line and a melody, and then I tweak the sounds afterwards. So in my workflow, I just need to have a structure and some riffs and chords and stuff, and then kind of decorate that with different tones and stuff. So, well, I guess that whatever
it's a matter of
works
taste.
for you. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, whatever works for you. Yeah, that's what I always tell people.
The order of things.
Yeah, that's what I always tell people, that you should do whatever works for you. I mean, I'm not saying that this is the right way to do it. It's just my way to do it.
But you have kind of learned to do this lately. You started within the laptop and like that. So what gave you the hint that there might be something more to this hardware?
Yeah, it's always been when I've been making music. It's always been my dream to use hardware, but since I didn't have the money when I was younger, I had a laptop, and back then I just bought a Logic for it. Right. Actually, I started with a PC and this Adobe software called Cool Edit Pro. That's funny. Wow. Yeah. That's what I started.
A long way.
Yeah. Then I had Logic, and I had like one of my friends putting me down because of my enthusiasm about making music inside the box, because he thought that you can never make as authentic a sound as you can make with hardware, and you should work with hardware. And yes, I know I want to work with hardware, but I don't have the money, but I can make music now here inside the laptop. I can do that, and that's why I am enthused. That's where the enthusiasm comes from, because I can just make music, and that's what you should do. Grab any device like a laptop and make music with that, or a guitar or whatever, and be maybe later, if you want to use hardware like me, then when you have the money, then you go and buy it. It takes a lot of work to have that kind of money. If you want to do it, then you work for it.
Right. Well, I think that's it. We had a really good view on this topic.
Yeah, I was supposed to make a proper beat, but this is what I came up with. Usually I end my videos with listening to the perfect track that I made, but maybe I will just give you a link to our Monday Jams, or our artistic project called Pihka is my name.
Which is done with these same devices.
Yeah, it's done with the same devices, and you should check out the video called Binaries. The debut video came out this spring 2020, the wonderful spring of 2020, which is going to be remembered only from the Binaries music video, which you're gonna see now. On hyvä.